Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Thanks for joining today. Today we're back on the KCS Greenville sub for episode number 7. And we are going to focus today on the town of Diana. Now, I gotta be honest, of all the route build videos I've made on this layout so far, I really genuinely think this one is my favorite. When I finished up with this one recording the other day, I just walked away with a big old smile. I just felt like I did a really good job. And it's just something I'm just really proud of. So hopefully you guys will enjoy as well. I think it's going to add a lot of life on this part of the layout. Keep in mind, this is the line heading south to Longview. This is just technically a branch line, so even though there's quite a bit of activity on this branch line, it's only ever going to run 3 trains, and there's only going to be just a few places for switching. So this is going to be about the most active area on the entire branch line. And then once we get this branch line done here in about a week or so, maybe 2 weeks, we'll start heading out and working on the rest of the layout. So definitely excited about that. But one other really nice thing is we're probably only about a week or two, probably 2 weeks away from being able to operate this branch here. So I definitely would like to be able to set up an operation just of a train or two running on the branch, just kind of demonstrate what will be planned. And plus it'll be exciting just to kind of see everything. So let's go ahead though and start talking about what's going on. So currently this industry is a small cement mill. Now I do know that, you know, in the modern world, this is set in the modern times. I do know that most cement mills are massive because cement, like most things, are more easily produced at scale. However, this is a model railroad, and there is still enough track space for about 12 or 13 cars to be shipped in. So that's actually still quite a bit of traffic for a model railroad. But we've got 2 spurs under the sheds. One is for loading up the cement. The other is for unloading coal. And then we have another spur here off by itself where we can unload the silicates like sand and the limestones in order to get the lime that we crush. So I did manage to actually find a stone crusher asset, and so I definitely used that, was excited for that. But yeah, this is going to be what we call Simpson's Cement. So this is definitely the biggest industry on the Longview Branch. It's got quite a bit of traffic that'll be coming in. Mostly, of course, covered hoppers. We'll have a few open hoppers bringing in coal here and there, but we won't be doing any unit trains for this. It's not that big. I am kind of wrestling with the idea for a couple of industries on the route that will receive some unit trains. At least one for sure I'm thinking of, possibly a second one. But those are definitely not going to be on the Longview Branch. That'll be more on the east-west main line and the actual Greenville sub. Wanted to throw in some heavy equipment. Realized that last one there was way too big. And then just kind of add to the scene, decided that I would add in some dumpers. Just simulating some older dumpers, older business, you know, bringing in the limestone and gravel and different things to move around the industry. So this one here, I'm going to use this shed just to create an industry off to fill some space. This one's not actually going to get any rail service. That's perfectly fine. When you're building layouts, you don't have to serve every industry that's on the route. Sometimes it's good to have some things in the background. And I'm kind of experimenting with some pavements. Decided to stick with the things I trust and know, and that's perfectly fine. And as is my custom, you know, I always kind of surround my pavements with a little line of dirt. That's mostly just to serve as a transition. Plus, you know, if you look at industries that aren't paved over, industries with, you know, gravel instead of asphalt, there usually is, you know, some dirt in different areas kind of around the edges where, you know, stuff doesn't really grow too well. And that's pretty common. It's not like they're going to keep it up necessarily unless it's their front office, but nothing here is the front office. All right, so over in this spur now, we are working on we were going to work on the packing plant. I've now shifted over to the brick mill. So this is James Brick. So way back in the day in Diana, Texas, there was actually a brick mill called James Brick. And sometimes in the area, people will still find bricks buried underground with the James Brick label or logo and stuff imprinted into the bricks themselves. So this is definitely not a faithful recreation under any sense, but just more or less serving as a placeholder. The only thing that's going to happen here is we're just going to ship out loaded flat cars, bulkhead flat cars with bricks, occasionally a box car with bricks, and that's it. I'm not going to ship any limestones or gravels or sands or clays or coal or anything into that brick mill. So we're just going to simulate that it gets it all from local supplies. To be fair, there are plenty of stone, gravel, and sand supplies in that area. Plus there is quite a bit of coal about 30 miles south or so. It's not very good coal, but it is definitely coal, and it up to this day, at least, it does still get some rail service. So on this layout, though, we're not going to be tapping into that coal supply. That's south of Longview, closer around the town of Tatum. So just kind of filling in some grass, adding in some detail to break up the monotony, and also getting the land kind of up a little higher for the spurs to make the spurs sunk down into the ground a bit. Running over there to grab my new favorite dirty track texture. So it definitely fits in well in covering up the tracks and whatnot. So I definitely like sinking my tracks into the ground and covering them. So I realized I had originally intended to do this for Diana Yard, but I forgot to do it last time. But I realized that I needed space for a couple of locomotives. And these are the locomotives that switch the yard here. Plus, they also run the local south from Diana down to Judson and Omega. So I decided I would cut out a bit of the track space, which the funny thing about that, it actually makes all the yard tracks the same length now, which isn't really a problem. They are a bit short, so the yard's going to be a bit under capacity most times, but that's not necessarily wrong or bad either. And then I'm going to just leave one track here to store locomotives, and these will be the ones that we use for switching. So this is obviously still the KCS, so of course I'll throw some KCS locomotives in there. Since we're modern times, I'll probably use some SD40s. I do have some Jeep 38s that are KCS, but I don't really like their whistle sound. And, you know, while I know how to change a whistle, some of you guys might not, and so I'll probably just throw the SD40s down and call it a day for now. We'll see what I change my mind with later when it comes to, you know, working with the session. I did also realize I need to change up the names of these switches, so you're going to see me do a little bit of that. Nothing too major there, just making sure everything has a nice, pretty name. And then we need a little bit of space here for having fuel trucks be able to access where the locomotives park when they're not in service. So just creating a little fuel truck there. Going to add a tank. I'm not too worried about using a high detail tank or high poly or anything like that. I definitely just want to communicate the idea. I also know that it doesn't technically satisfy clearance regulations, but I'm not really worried about that too, because this is a model railroad as opposed to me trying to build something to scale. So, all right, just throwing in some of those final details there around that, and then going to work on filling in just some grime and things around different parts of the track. I decided I didn't want too much right here just because that texture asset wasn't really my favorite, but I did figure I'd throw a little bit under some of the switches, just to kind of add in some grime and, you know, represent that we don't really clean those areas up very much, which would make sense. All right, so now I decided I would work on the area over here, the grassy area that just is devoid of all life. So we're going to throw in a little dirt road for just auxiliary service for the yard. And then we're going to add in some crop fields and trees and stuff. So this part of Diana is actually more or less kind of in the town of Diana, but Diana itself is not big. It's pretty small. And there's not a lot of people there. It's definitely growing because it's north of Longview and it's pretty close to Longview. It's actually one of the closest towns that is north of Longview. But, you know, we're just going to run with the simulation here. Instead of building another town, we're going to just add a few different crop varieties. You know, obviously we don't grow any main crops like, you know, your corns or your wheats or anything like that. But I'm sure a long time back in the day, the areas that were trimmed of their pine trees, they probably attempted to grow cotton or, you know, other things like that. So, but we're not going to plant any cotton this time, nor are we going to worry about modeling the cotton industry. So just kind of some space fillers. If you drive out in this area, a lot of people grow hay, which makes sense. You know, there's also a lot of cattle out in this area. So later on different parts of the route, I'll have some fields where we have some livestock and things. But for the most part right now, just kind of populating everything, getting some trees in to kind of break up the scenes a bit, add some variety, and make it where it doesn't look like the plains of West Texas. Also decided that I wanted to kind of raise the height of the land up just the slightest bit so that if you're at the track level and you look over across the dirt road there, you'll end up kind of looking up over just a bit of a raised hill for the fields. So no real reason other than just to do something a little bit different. And then, as I typically do with my track, same thing with dirt roads, just kind of sinking it in a bit to add in some variety. I definitely don't like the fact that it looked like it was floating, so we're fixing that. All right, now some fine details. Not going over the top with it, but just getting some life in. So we're going to add in some reefer trucks over here. This is the cold storage and the meat packing plant. So this is a meat packing plant mostly for the poultry market, which is big in the East Texas area. It definitely was a lot bigger when I was growing up. It still exists, though. And one of the biggest companies out in East Texas for growing, harvesting, and feeding chickens was Pilgrim. Back in the day, it was called Pilgrim's Pride. Now it's just called Pilgrim, or I think Pilgrims maybe. But we are going to model their main feed mill in Pittsburgh as well, where they distribute feed via truck out to a lot of places in East Texas. So it gets its feed delivered via rail. We're going to model that as well. That's a unique industry over in Pittsburgh because it actually crosses or has a shed over the main line. And it's a main line that gets like double stack, intermodal containers going to Dallas and back. So definitely interesting to model that. Definitely think I have a shed that's big enough for it. But really, all these industries here in Diana are just fictional ones that I made up. And Diana is not an industrial town. There's no longer a rail line or anything like that. Once upon a time there was. It didn't last very long. I think like 8 or 9 years. So it's all right, though. You can still see the roadbed at times. And as I typically do, just throwing in some scenery details along the fences. But we are almost getting to the end here. And I did make a funny mistake there. Copy the dig hole. But now that we're getting close to the end, I just want to make sure that I take the chance to say thank you. I'm going to have some cinematics today for you guys to enjoy, so I'll let you guys get to that. Make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment if you have some questions or something that you liked. Please let me know, and always enjoy when you guys watch and comment, and I look forward to seeing you guys around next time. Take care.